Okay, I'm here. I'm not sure if you are, Alexis. Gosh, this is a little bit more complicated than I had expected. So I think we might have lost a few people, sadly. We'll get this for next time, guys. I promise we'll nail it for the future. And if we can't get Alexis on the video for some reason, then I will get her on the phone and she can contribute verbally, but just not visually. It's ironic that today our topic is the neurobiology of grace under pressure. We decided we're talking about how when we're stressed or under pressure, we can keep our cool, which I think we've managed to do, even though this is very stressful, not being able to get technology to work. And we want to share with you today some sort of psychoeducation, some of the neuroscience is probably another way of saying it, about how to hack your nervous system in order to stay calm under pressure and collect yourself, stay composed in stressful situations. I want to share a breathing technique with you, and I want to answer your questions. And we want to talk a bit about something called polyvagal theory, which some of you may have heard about. Polyvagal theory is still just a theory about how our nervous system works to regulate the seesaw of our nervous system, basically. Colloquially known, the two branches of our nervous system as rest and digest, where we're calm, we can digest our food, we can connect socially, we can focus, we can listen, we can learn, we can have compassion. And the other branch of our nervous system, our sympathetic nervous system, which is also known as our fight-flight system, and will rev us into action if we detect threat. But sometimes the fight-flight system is activated unnecessarily or overactivated. In an extreme case, we might have a panic attack or an anxiety attack, even though we're perfectly safe. And so, or at a lower level, we might just get anxious, and it's not helpful. The fear that we're feeling is not helping us rescue a child off the road or fight a predator. We don't need it, but it gets activated anyway. So we wanted to talk to you about how we do this. Now, I'm going to give Alexis a quick call from my other device and get her on here as an audio. Can you hear me, Alexis? You can hear me, but we can't see you, unfortunately.
That is absolutely fine. I am so enjoying hearing you. So how about if I ask you a few questions?
Sure.
And you could feed that on to the group.
Yes.
Would you like to just set that up and let them know that that's the plan?
Yeah, okay. That's great. I wish I could see you, but at least we can hear you. I just want to ask the people who are watching, can you hear Alexis? Can someone please let me know if you can hear Alexis's voice on this call? So
Okay.
that's great. At least we've got your audio.
Fantastic. And so
I would love to share a breathing exercise with you and everyone who's watching that I use with my clients. Some of you might have heard of it, and it's just called square breathing.
Excellent.
So let's go through square breathing, and then we can talk about how we can self-soothe and self-regulate and some of the neuroscience behind that, which I think is so helpful to understand a little bit of. Yeah, and you can share your knowledge too, because I know that you have a lot. So square breathing is simply a way to focus the mind and the breath together. And in our mind, what we do is we visualize, I like to visualize a pencil on paper drawing a square, and as I draw one side of the square, I'm breathing in, counting to 4. Everyone can try this now. And then holding as I draw the top of the square for the count of 4. Breathing out on the other side of the square for 4. And then just pausing as I draw the bottom of the square for the count of 4. So let's try it. Empty all the air out of your lungs and breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. Now breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and pause, 2, 3, 4. Let's do one more. Breathing in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, and out, 2, 3, 4, and just pausing, 2, 3, 4. And that is square breathing, because we need to count and visualize going around the square and remembering to hold and then remembering to pause. It engages the mind as well as the breath, and I typically would take my clients through 5 square breaths. We just did 2 now. But after 5 square breaths, I say, how are you feeling now compared to before? And everybody always says they're feeling calmer. Always. Yeah.
And Rach, may I ask, what is the difference between breathing in this exercise versus just drawing a square? What is the difference there? What is the mechanism behind that to you, in your understanding?
Well, I think that the holding at the top of the inhalation does a couple of things. It stretches the intercostal muscles of our rib cage, and just that stretch, just like in yoga where we stretch, the stretching of the intercostal muscles can help release some tension and give our body time to change physiologically and our lungs to absorb the air. And then on the exhalation, we can make our exhalation a bit longer because we've got that spare count of 4 at the bottom. So if we make it 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, and then back to count. I mess this up all the time. I make it 5, I make it 6 as I get slowed down and calmer. And I like that I draw the square in my mind because there are squares everywhere. My laptop is sort of a square. I see picture frames. Everywhere we have rectangles and squares. And sometimes, I actually use the squares in my life to remind me to do square breathing.
Yes, okay. So as a visual anchor that's all around us. Yeah, that's beautiful. I like what you said about the intercostals. That reminds me that in a therapeutic approach to yoga, we use absolutely the side stretching. So even a simple side stretch where I've now stopped my walking, I'm leaning to open my intercostal muscles, the very muscles there between the ribs. This is the number one technique we would use as a yoga therapeutic practitioner for relieving anxiety. So that makes a lot of sense, what you've said about the hold, creating that stretch and that then facilitating the relaxation. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And so what we're really doing here is stimulating our vagus nerve. We want to stimulate that vagus nerve, and that releases a neurohormone called acetylcholine. Do you know about that one, Alexis?
I do know a little, but I would love to hear your insight.
I don't know a lot about acetylcholine, but I know that it helps us to calm down. I know that it helps to switch on the learning centers of our brain. And because what happens when we get very triggered, very stressed, is our attention narrows, the adrenaline, redirects energies in our body, and we can't think clearly and we can't our memory is affected, our focus is narrowed, whereas acetylcholine helps our brain calm down. We're more able to think, we're more able to learn, we're more able to focus. So that's all I really wanted to say about acetylcholine. It's a good antidote for adrenaline. And, yeah.
And yes, we all know that adrenaline, too much adrenaline in the system, long term, leads to not only a collapse of the nervous system if we've been running on that stress for too long, but ultimately even the immune system. So there are, and the digestive system, there's certainly a flow-on effect throughout the whole body.
Exactly.
To this ongoing stress.
And then we get into a feedback loop, and we can, be in a vicious cycle, and we can then get anxious about our physiological symptoms. So the fear of fear or the anxiety of anxiety.
And Rach, on that, I'm interested in your thought on, why the body is so important in breaking patterns of anxiety and stress versus a pure intellectual understanding.
Yeah, well, because of the mind-body connection, we can't just regulate our body, which is where our stress is happening, our anxiety, our feelings are in the body. We can't just use rational thinking, and often we can't use rational thinking at all, because it's very hard to convince ourselves out of irrational thinking. Einstein said you can't use the same level of thinking that created the problem to solve the problem. And so we have, as you know, in psychology, top-down and bottom-up strategy. So what that means is we can use our mind, we can use language and rational thinking to help us calm down, and that's top-down, and we can use the breath and the body to calm our mind and therefore calm our body. And that's called bottom-up regulatory strategies. And with my clients, I use both. I use breath and body work to help calm the mind. And when the mind is a bit calmer, then rational thinking and more compassionate thinking is possible to keep us in that more composed state. So we want to look for top-down and bottom-up strategies. And that square breathing and yoga are both bottom-up strategies.
So are you saying, Rach, that using this square breathing will help my body to stay in a state that will help to keep my mind more calm? Is that what you're saying?
Definitely. The mind follows the body. Imagine a man riding an elephant, and he's got control of the elephant, but if the elephant gets triggered, there isn't much that the little rider on top of the elephant can do to get the elephant back into control other than, he can't rationalize with the elephant, but to try and calm the elephant. The elephant is a symbol for our body and unconscious mind. And if the elephant's thrashing around, the little guy on top riding the elephant's going to be being thrashed around. So our mind is like that. Our mind follows the body. So if we can work at the level of the body and the breath, then we can get a different mental, physical, and emotional state happening. And I'd like to share a couple of strategies, and perhaps you could share some strategies that are top-down and bottom-up strategies. We've got about 9 minutes left on this call, so I'd like to share a couple, and perhaps people can ask questions as well. I think I can see the questions if people have them. So we've done the square breathing. The other one let me give you a top-down one, actually. So we'll use the mind. So it sounds like a strange thing, but if we visualize our nervous system, then we can actually begin to have compassion for the fact that our nervous system is doing what it does, You know, we don't have full control. The mind is tricky. The nervous system is tricky. If I just try and get a picture in my mind, Google Images is useful for this, then I can literally talk to my nervous system like it's a separate entity. You know, sometimes I say, oh, my poor little nervous system. You know, we're in this together. Come and work with me here. You know, it's okay. You are safe. Just, you know, take my ego out of it, because if my ego's in the picture, then I'm saying I shouldn't feel this way. I should be able to think calmly. You know, what's wrong with me? I have fear and shame going on, which are, you know, the employees of the ego. And that's not going to help me. I want to befriend my nervous system. My poor little nervous system is my comrade.
Yes, it is.
And so, I want to kind of visualize it, talk to my poor little heart that's racing and my poor little nervous system, and say, I'm with you. We're okay. You know, it's a moment of suffering. It's hard, but, you know, we have options and everything's not as bad as you think, and I'm safe. And whatever it is that you need to hear, or your poor little nervous system needs to hear. So that's a top-down approach. It's a self-compassion approach that uses language and our mind to talk kindly to ourselves.
Yes, that's interesting. As you're talking, Rach, I'm remembering or considering that even the square breathing includes a component of both. For the fact that you're visualizing the square, the mind is involved, and then the breath being the bottom up, the two coming together.
Yes.
Seems to be the key, you know, and I think of my clients who are highly intelligent and have managed to achieve a lot in their lives through basically top-down processing. You know, they've been able to achieve their work goals, their fitness goals, for example, and yet when it comes to things like anxiety and the quality of sleep and even fertility, these parts of the body, digestion also, that are very much influenced by our nervous system, they're almost inaccessible, and these clients are questioning why am I not able to, or as you've just said, you know, what's wrong with me? Why can I not achieve what I'm looking for? And when you're talking now, you're reminding me that it's the bottom up coupled with the top down. That is the key to it becoming an embodied experience.
I agree. I think that the linkages between the intellect and the language part of our mind and the visceral bodily experience of being human and having a body, if we can link body and mind and integrate it in this way, it's much more effective. And anybody who's done performance would probably know that they need to tame their mind while they're using their body. You know, some of my clients are runners or piano players or tennis players, and they'll tell me about how they need to use their mind in a certain way to achieve their physical or performance goals, so that the body and mind, like the elephant and the rider, are working together in alignment. So we need the top down and bottom up, yes.
Yeah, that's so true, Rach. And, you know, there was a number of participants on the retreat who had that experience. Even during the retreat, there was some bodily changes as a result of this mind and body together. And following retreat, there's been reports of particularly the digestive system responding to, but also the quality of sleep, responding to this combination of top down and bottom up.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of the retreat, I just wanted to say something quickly and then open it up to a question or two. That on the retreat, we will be doing, there's a retreat that Alexis and I are running in August on Stradbroke Island. You can find more on our events page about that. And the beauty of this 2-day retreat, apart from the fact that it's in a beautiful place on the ocean, is that we will be doing both top-down and bottom-up strategies and integrating them. So we will be doing deep self-compassion exercises, which use our ability to think about our feelings. And I will be guiding people through structured exercises so that they can think lovingly and kindly about their own experiences, their own feelings, their own sensations, and make sense of them in terms of their needs and their values, and use this self-awareness, this self-knowledge to be kinder to themselves and take action going forward. And you, Alexis, do you want to speak a bit about what you'll be doing on the retreat?
Absolutely. Yes, Rachel, I love what you bring. That the mind can almost unpick itself through the techniques and the specific formula that you offer. The bottom-up practices that I'll be sharing come about through the combination of stretch and strength, so very much the physicality, but the mind involved in the physicality. So, of course, we'll be relieving any tense areas of the body. We'll be strengthening any weak areas. And we'll also be using breath-based practices that help to condition the nervous system to reside in this parasympathetic state, which enables a more complete form of resting and a more complete form of digesting. Yeah. So that's predominantly from contemplative practices, yoga and meditation.
I love, on our last retreat, Alexis, I loved how, though you were leading the body-based and breath-based practices, you still emphasized loving kindness and self-compassion. So you were also weaving, I felt, the top-down strategies into your bottom-up strategies.
Oh, great, Rach. I'm so pleased to hear that came across. And likewise, your focus on the feelings and where they are in the body, that is a recognition of the need to bring the body and the mind together. Yeah. And it's been absolutely fascinating for me to hear your authentic teaching and share, what I've been working with for decades, and to see that there's these poignant points of connection. I've found that so incredibly satisfying, and I really enjoy when I'm listening to podcasts, for example, where there's a number of experts speaking on their topics, and where there's those moments of, yes, that fits with that, the connection between various perspectives.
Absolutely. I like that too. Integrating bodies of work avoids dogma. Now, Denise McCarthy had a question. She wanted to know if we could do the retreat on Zoom because of COVID. And I would love to be able to offer it on Zoom, but I don't think we're going to be doing that at this stage, Alexis. Is that right?
Look, it's a great question. Thank you for asking. What was her name? I'm sorry, I missed
that was from Denise.
Denise, yeah, that's a great question. I think that we could quite easily do it. Now, we would just have to be sensitive to confidentiality of the group, but I believe we could structure it so that the introduction and the information were delivered up front, and then obviously the participatory part would be confidential. So thanks for asking, Denise, and if we stay tuned on the Facebook page, then we should be able to let you know when the videos are available.
Okay, I'll talk to you about that a bit later on, Alexis, because that sounds really good. Amanda Reese says, it'd be great if you could do a retreat on a weekend because weekdays are hard for me. So thanks, Amanda, for raising that. Alexis, you and I could possibly plan future retreats on a Saturday and a Sunday. I think that'd be viable.
Yeah, I think so. We the space that we have used for a long time is now heavily booked. That's been the reason that this one is not on a weekend.
Right.
But I'm sure we can have a look at making that happen, because I agree, Amanda, it's much easier on the weekend.
All right, let's look at future planning for a Saturday, Sunday to allow people who have difficulty with the weekends. Now, anyone else I can see 17 people are watching. I wonder if anyone has any questions while we're still live that either Alexis or myself could respond to. So feel free to type your questions. You're welcome, Amanda. Feel free to ask any questions that have anything at all to do with staying composed under pressure or self-soothing or self-regulation, because this is such an important topic. Our relationships go so much better if we can self-soothe and self-regulate, because one of the biggest things that gets us into trouble in relationships is getting emotionally flooded, ending up in our sympathetic nervous system, our body being flooded with adrenaline. You're welcome, Denise. Our body getting flooded with cortisol, and then we start acting in a way we're not compassionate. We're not ourselves anymore. We're getting highly defensive or critical or blaming. So self-soothing and self-regulating is really the foundational skill for mental health and for relationships. That's what I think anyway. What do you think, Alexis?
Yes, I agree with you absolutely, Rach. And may I just add that it's especially important when we're in the situation that we are now here in Brisbane under lockdown. And even though we are getting used to these conditions, absolutely worth the extra care of self and extra care of the nervous system during these times.
Now, Amanda has asked another question. How do you slow down to self-soothe in the morning rush with kids, getting kids ready? Now, Alexis and I both have kids, so we know this one. What do you do, Alexis?
Oh, that's such a good question. Yeah, look, my go-to is the breath. And that's just, I think, conditioning over time. I'm very aware of using my breath when I feel rushed and slowing things down, even slowing down my language, I find really helps. Trying not to engage in flustered activity. I find if I can simplify, then that really helps drastically to maintain my focus and my calm.
Me too. And I'll give you 2 quick tips, Amanda, that I use in those sort of situations. One is, because the mind runs a dialogue constantly and much more quickly and constantly when we're stressed. Sometimes one trick I have is I make my internal dialogue be a running commentary of what I'm doing. So I say, grabbing my phone, pouring the milk, cutting the carrots, pulling on my socks, whatever I'm doing. If I notice my mind is starting to get judgy and they should and why don't they and all the thoughts that are going to make me more flustered and more angry, I just try and talk to myself and tell myself what I'm doing, and that uses my mind to help me stay present and conscious to what I'm actually doing in the moment. The second thing I do is I tell myself to feel my feet. So this is also, Kate asked, how do you regulate instead of arguing with someone? That is, feeling my feet has been a lifesaver for me when I'm feeling really under threat or defensive. And I just say to myself, feel your feet, feel your feet, feel your feet, because it's as far in my bodily experience from my thinking mind as I can get. And if I'm sitting or standing and my feet are on the ground, which is usually the case, I can get grounded through my feet. Then I can pause, slow down, and connect with my feelings and needs, and can try and connect with the other person's feelings and needs so that we can start to dialogue about those instead of getting into defensiveness, criticism, or even contempt. So feel your feet. Do a commentary of what it is you're doing just to stay present. Just name some things around you, like painting, water bottle, curtain, because I want to be able to stay here now and not be off in my head thinking about the past or judging or worrying about the future. Someone else has asked a question. I'm just going to go back. Lee says, would you recommend removing yourself from difficult situations until you can learn to self-soothe? Lee, I would say that we can all self-soothe. We all have the ability. We just have to remember to do it. But in terms of removing yourself from the situation, absolutely. I'm a big fan of timeout. If you're emotionally flooded, if you can feel yourself tempted to be defensive or aggressive or mean or biting back, you know that's not going to help. So you could say to your child or your colleague or your partner, I'm putting myself in timeout. I just need to take a break. I want to talk about this. We need to deal with this. But right now, I'm not fit for public consumption, you know. I just need 20 minutes. And that's usually how long it takes our body to metabolize the stress hormones once we're flooded. So definitely remove yourself from the situation and
if I
calm down.
Might just add to that, Rach, I love what you've said. Timeout can be so invaluable in breaking the cycle of escalation. But if the question is referring to the longer term, that might be something to call for help on, only that, anxious states can lead to avoidance, which may perpetuate a situation. In that case, asking for guidance to face those immense challenges may be necessary to shift it, if the question, of course, is related to those longer-term avoidances.
Yeah. And Lee did say, learning to self-soothe. And I think even though we have the mechanisms ready to go with self-soothing, I've personally needed help. I've had meditation teachers, yoga teachers, therapists myself who've all taught me different things. But as Alexis would probably agree, it takes practice.
Mm-hmm.
You think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, learning to self-soothe. It's beautifully said.
Okay, so we've had a couple of really, really good questions there. Thank you so much for those questions. I'm so enjoying this Facebook Live, even though we still don't know what we're doing with the technology, but we will get there. That I'm thinking we need to do one of these every week. Alexis, what do you think?
Absolutely. I think it's a beautiful way to make contact with you and to hear your thoughts, and for people to bring their questions. Which, psychologists are in high demand at the moment. All therapists are in high demand, and here's such a simple, accessible way for people to just ask that burning question that's right on the tip of the tongue, and to hear hear the right knowledge, hear knowledge that's been tried and tested and built on evidence, as opposed to the bombardment of information that's available, really reliable information. So thank you so much for being available to us, Rach. That is a really generous act.
Well, I enjoy it too, because one of my core values and needs is contribution. So I really enjoy to share what works for me and what I've learned in my 20-something years as a psychologist, but not just as a psychologist, as a friend, a parent, a partner, and a human being. And Alexis, I love you, and so I think it's just something that you and I would enjoy to do together.
It would be my pleasure, Rach. So we might put that out to the group to see, when is a good time, if it's Sunday evening, or if it's Friday evening. A regular thing I think is a great idea.
Yeah, we could do live at 5 on a Friday afternoon. People could bring their glass of wine or their peppermint tea.
Yes.
I might put a post up on our Facebook page and pin it to the top. So if you've got a preference for another time of the week, and of course people are tuning in, Alexis, from all over the world, not just Brisbane.
True.
It's going to be, which is so wonderful, but it's going to be a different time for everybody. But I'd love to do this at least once a week. And Catherine says that'd be a perfect time. It'll set me up for the week. So
Friday at 5, yeah.
Live at 5.
Was that Sunday or Friday?
I said Friday before, but I'll see. Some people might like Sunday at 5, and I could potentially do either one. And we'll let you know ahead of time what the topic is, and we can share links, and I'll share some links in the comments on this video to some stuff we've talked about in terms of maintaining grace under pressure. And next week we'll do a different topic, and we'll let you know what that would be.
Wonderful. And if you have any suggestions for topics, please feel free to leave them in the comments below.
Yes.
But really wonderful to have the input of the group.
Yes, and Denise said you can watch replays. So you can watch replays of live videos. Of course, that's the beauty of Facebook live videos, is they stay up there for you to watch later. If you miss out, and you can still comment, I'll still see the comments as a notification. You could ask us to, cover a particular topic, as Alexis said, the following week. And hopefully, Alexis, we can work out the technology so we can both be on the screen next time.
Yes, that would be wonderful. Yeah. I look forward to it.
Okay.
So thank you again, Rachel. Really appreciate that you've given us so much. I've learned more in the time that I've known you than probably in my whole life around communication.
Wow.
And that is not, it's not no small feat. Communication underlies absolutely everything we do. So thank you, Rachel. And I'm sure I speak on behalf of a lot of your clients also who have also received huge benefit from their contact with you.
I hope so. And it certainly warms my heart to think so. So, yeah. Okay, well, look, we've been on this Facebook Live for over half an hour now, and we had planned to make them 20 minutes. Perhaps we'll
sign off. Sounds good.
We might have to sign off, and perhaps we make the Facebook Lives an average of 30 minutes so that we've got all this time for Q&A.
I think, that sounds like a good idea.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Alexis. Bye for now.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.